The storm and the silence. The night was wild and restless. Rain hammered against the windows, lightning flashed across the dark sky, and thunder rolled like distant anger. Inside, Sarah sat alone in the dimly lit living room, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes fixed on the ticking clock mark. Her husband was away again. Another business trip, another empty bed. Another silent house, but tonight, something else was missing. Her stepson Jake still hadn't come home. She had texted him, called him, no answer. Worry crept into her heart like the storm outside. Then the door burst open. Jake stumbled in, drenched, exhausted, and smelling of alcohol. His jacket hung loosely, his eyes clouded with pain. "Jake," Sarah said firmly, setting her book aside. "Where have you been?" He gave a weak smile. "Don't start, Sarah." "I'm fine," but she could see the hurt behind his words. His face was pale, his voice trembling. "You're not fine," she said gently. "Sit down before you fall." Jake dropped onto the couch and ran a hand through his wet hair. "She broke up with me," he muttered. "Said I wasn't ready, said I was a mess." Sarah's anger faded. "I'm sorry, Jake. I know that hurts." He looked up, eyes glistening. "Why am I never enough for anyone?" She reached for the blanket beside him. Their hands brushed. He didn't move away. His touch lingered. Her heart skipped. The air shifted. "You should get some rest," she whispered, stepping back quickly. "You'll feel better in the morning." But Jake only laughed bitterly. "You always say that like it's true." The tension hung thick as thunder echoed outside. Sarah turned toward the kitchen, her voice shaking. "I'll make some tea." The line between care and in confusion. When she returned with 2 steaming mugs, Jake was hunched over, elbows on his knees. The storm outside hadn't eased. If anything, it had grown angrier, matching the turmoil inside the room. He looked up slowly. "You know," he said, "you're the only one who ever listens. Dad's always gone, Mom doesn't call. You're the only one who stays." The words hit Sarah hard. "Jake, your dad loves you," she whispered. Jake shook his head, a sad smile forming. "Maybe, but you're the one who's here." Sarah's breath caught. The silence stretched dangerously long. Every beat of the rain against the glass felt louder. "You're upset," she said quickly. "You need to sleep before you say something you'll regret." Jake looked straight into her eyes. "What if I already did?" She stood to break the moment. "I'll get you a pillow for the couch." But as she turned, his hand caught her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. "You don't have to take care of me," he whispered. Her heart ached. "Yes, I do," she replied softly. "That's what family does." Then she slipped free, walked into the kitchen, and leaned against the counter, her pulse racing. What was happening? Why did she feel something she shouldn't? When she returned, Jake was half asleep. She tucked a pillow under his head, pulled the blanket over him. "Thanks, Sarah," he murmured. She froze, whispered, "Good night, Jake," and turned off the light, but sleep never came. Only the echo of his voice. "You're the one who stays the morning after." The next morning was calm. The rain had stopped, sunlight filtering through gray clouds. The storm was gone, but inside, everything still felt unsettled. Sarah stood in the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee. She heard footsteps behind her. Jake entered, looking embarrassed, sober and quiet. "About last night," he said softly. "I shouldn't have said what I did. I was drunk." Sarah turned to him with a faint smile. "You don't have to apologize, Jake. You were hurting." He nodded, then looked at her with honesty still. "I meant it. You're the only one who really cares." Her throat tightened. "You'll find someone who does," she said. "Someone your age. Someone who makes you happy." He smiled sadly. "Maybe someday." After he left, Sarah stood by the window, watching the leftover raindrops slide down the glass. He told herself she'd done the right thing, that she'd stopped something before it began. But deep down she knew that night had changed something neither of them could name. When Mark came home days later, everything looked normal again. The laughter, the dinners, the small talk, all perfectly ordinary. But sometimes Sarah caught Jake's eyes lingering a little too long, and she'd remember that storm, the sound of rain against the glass, the warmth of his voice, and the quiet danger of what almost happened. Not through action, but through the haunting truth of what could have been.